Hello. Hey, hey. Can you see me, hear me, or any of those things? Looks like I'm here. Hello. I'm live, apparently, but I'm not seeing anything coming through yet. Here I come. Here we go. Okay. Hi, everyone. How are we all? Okay. Just getting everything lined up. Hopefully we've got we've got all of those things. Hope the chat room's working all right for you guys. At least I hope. I hope. I need to put in a comment. Okay, so, right, hopefully today we've got Mark Tinley, Gaz Williams, and maybe Robbie Bronham. I'm not sure yet if Robbie's going to be able to make it. Okay, right, so we have a live stream. Good. Everything's on. How are we all? So the chat is working all right. It's a bit different, but it should be the same, essentially. It's a chat client. I want to say thanks very much to Will for helping out and pointing me in the right direction. Managed to fix that. That was good. And it's not chat. It's not Flash, so it should be okay. For those of you watching on YouTube, we've got an IRC client channel, which if you go to sonicstate.com/live, you see the same YouTube stream, but you're getting the RIRC. That's a hard thing to say. In the chat window instead of the YouTube one. It'd be nice to be able to figure out a way to merge them, but I don't know that there is a way. So I'm afraid I can't say for sure. Thanks for the System 8 video you did on the System 8. That's all right. You're welcome. Shaggy Freak. I was looking for your name. Thank you very much. Hope you're feeling better. Any plans to get the YouTube? I don't know if there is a way. I mean, if anybody knows a way, great. But I'm not sure. There probably is, but I'm not aware of it. Shaggy Feet thinks you can figure out a way to merge them, at least on one page. It'd be nice to be able to, for the people in the IRC chat room to be able to see them. I don't think I'll be able to send them to the YouTube chat, obviously, because that I don't have control over that page. But if we can get the YouTube sort of at least displayed, that would be handy. Blazely, okay, I have a question. Do you think the younger generation, like 14 to 18, will carry on the love of synths? I've never met the kid who love. It's hard to know, isn't it? I mean, while there are people doing cool things with synthesizers in kind of contemporary music, there will be kids who are going, I'd like to be able to do that. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's never been easier, has it really? So, but it swings, you know. I'm sure people will be getting into guitars again in the next cycle. So, you know, if you love it, do it. Okay. Complete cycle chat window is tiny. You can pop it out and have it in a separate window if you want. So everything seems to be working. That's a good start, a good sign. Got some vids. That's a bit loud. That's pretty full on, isn't it?
Music can now be produced in...
Good old Clyde Stubblefield. And back to me. To me, as they say. And, oh, sorry, I've got a bit of tinnitus going on there. So, yeah, let me see, any other questions via anybody? The IRC chat is calling us rapscallions. I'm afraid I don't know the answer to that question. Let me see if I can... see what's going on. The web chat may indeed not work. I haven't been able to test it in terms of server loading. It wasn't working before. No data to show yet. Okay. Harley. Huh. Okay, well, maybe it's working. Sorry about that. Blah, 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 blah. Let's see. Okay. Well, we're getting the audience there, so that's cool. So what else have we got? We've got, oh yeah, Clyde and myself, and then this is interesting.
Hey guys, this is Will Doggett, Ableton Live certified trainer and director of training development at multitracks.com. I'm here at Worship Connect at Sweetwater in Fort Wayne, Indiana, in the Performance Theater. You guys are going to get a very kind of special
this
behind
is,
the scenes.
That was that's a bit of information about how to run two redundant systems, which always used to be really expensive. Paul Dither, what are your thoughts on Tats leaving Korg? Yeah, I think we're going to talk about that. It's an interesting topic. So I won't say too much now. David Hopkins saw a Matrix Brute in the shop today. Did you play with it? Greetings from Cologne. Ah, that's Raina Pandolfi. You haven't got anything to do with Tats, have you? Tatsuya Takahashi, he's moving to Cologne, apparently. Any rumours started before Music Messer? No, not Music Messer, but Super Booth is coming up soon, and that it probably is going to result in... I think there's going to be some releases there. That's all I can say. Thank you. Yes, maybe a good idea to write some instructions on setting up an IRC client. Yep, thank you. They can focus on adult gear now. Like what? Jim Jar Jimmy, you can, it's a small window, yes, but you can pop it out. There should be a link to pop out the chat in another window, which you can then make it bigger and stick it along the side if you like. Isn't that in Isn't that in Berlin? Oh, what's that? Yes, Super Booth is in Berlin, correct. And that will be on the 19th or 20th of April. Music Messer is on the 5th of April. Jonathan Tyre, any more synth reviews in the pipeline? Yes, I'm reviewing the Matrix Brute. I'm hoping to shoot that tomorrow. Do we plan a review of Hallion 6? We're going to have a look at that, yeah, for sure. That's in the pipeline also. What time is it in Brazil? I have no idea. Music Messer in Frankfurt is 5th to the 8th. Yeah, we're getting there on the 4th of April and leaving on the 7th, I believe. I've booked the flights and I'm waiting for the hotel. Let me see. That's the one thing I want to do, actually. That's a good point. Do, 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 do. Have I heard the new Depeche Mode single? No, not yet. I've had mixed reviews, but from people mentioning. I think Rob Purcelli was a bit disappointed with the single. I think that was him. It was him, and he's a sort of die-hard fan. He might be in the chat room. I don't know. Excellent. We're starting to get a few more people in the chat room, so that must mean the web chat is sort of working. So I think you could, if it's too small, you can change the settings so that the text compacts a bit more if you want. And you should be able to log in using your details that you have. Let's have a look. What's the Depeche Mode single? 2017. What is it? Is it called, I don't know, videos? Where is it? Depeche Mode, Where's the Revolution? New single. I wonder if I play a bit of this, I'll probably get busted. What's it? There's Mr. Tinley. Let's see if we can go and enlarge him for the screen. Mr. T. Wow, that's an interesting looking guitar.
It's a Cremona. All the way from Bulgaria.
Hold on a
Arrived very broken, and it's been glued back together by a man called Alan Miller.
Let's hold that up again. Oh, wow, that's a pretty thing.
It's massive.
It is very big. That's huge.
It's got 2 sound holes in it as well.
Is that so you can mic it up in a different place? Although that wouldn't make sense.
I don't know. I think it's before microphones. This is the same age as me, so it's 53 years old. Am I 53? Yeah.
Wow.
Maybe 54.
So it's a 1963 guitar. That's pretty. Certainly loud, isn't it? It's really good.
Yeah, it's good fun. I put light strings on it as well because it's loud. I can put lighter strings on it. It makes it easier to play. It's all been set up quite nicely.
Nice.
I need to make a cup of tea. Can I do that?
Yeah, sure. We've got 5 minutes.
Got 4 minutes, have I?
Yeah, 4 or 5 minutes. In fact, I need to go and do something as well. So I'll be back in a sec. See you in a minute.
Okay.
Be back in a short while. I'm just making myself a cup of tea. So the fact that Mark mentioned a cup of tea made me feel like I wanted a cup of tea. So that's the power of suggestions. If he starts yawning, I'll probably start yawning too. Anyway, back in a couple. Here comes Gaz. Right, let me just go and make him full screen. There we go.
Okay.
Yep, just getting you enlarged, sir.
Right, well, haha.
You seem like you've got quite a lot of gain on your channel, but you're not very loud. It sounds noisy.
Okay. I've got the Apogee mic like I normally use.
It sounds very quiet. It sounds like you're quiet, but there's gain.
Oh, okay.
Ah, there we go. Woohoo!
So,
There he comes. Your signal to noise ratio is far improved, much improved. Thanks for coming over yesterday, by the way, guys. I forgot to. I did text you yesterday. I had to dash off a bit. But anyway,
great. No, loved it. Lots of fun as always. Wow, it's always a bit of a wonderland visiting Sonic Towers.
Just for those of you who wondering what we're talking about, we're getting Gaz is taking a look at some of the new features in Cubase 9. So. And somebody was asking if we were going to be reviewing Hallion 6, and I think Gaz will hopefully be having a look at that as well. So there we go.
That's the plan.
Right, let's see. If since I... okay.
So where's the chat room action today?
There should be underneath the player. I've got a new chat room. Not a new chat room,
Correct.
a new web chat. So if you go to live, and it should also be, if you go to /live/chat/, then it'll open up the chat in a separate window without the player, which should work.
Just repeat that again.
Sonicstate.com/live/chat. Open that. It should just open the chat in a window, and you can enter into that.
Lovely.
It's a new. We've got a new.
Oh God! What's my nickname?
I don't know, Mark. You're gonna have to manage that yourself. It's beyond my ken. Right. So there we go. I don't know if we've got Robbie today. It's possible. He did say maybe, but he hasn't got back to me saying yes or no. So
he's been sunning himself on a Caribbean tour, hasn't he?
I would dearly love to hear about that, but he may well be just too busy.
God, that's bizarre. You're the person at the top in brackets, Yates. That's almost the same spelling as my son's name.
Ah, there we go.
So in the chat room, Nick.
Yes.
I'm looking at it full screen, but I've only got the text in a very, very small little band of I can only see five lines. Is that an option or something?
Yeah, me too.
Oh, really? Oh, I don't know then. That's not something I can fix live on air with 1 minute to go till we go.
Okay,
sorry about that. I think we're nearly ready. We're going live at 4:03. So stand by, everybody.
Oh,
I'm just waiting. So I need to go to there and go to the page, and it should tell me that I'm coming up soon. Let's have a look. Excuse me. Here we go.
Hey, Mark.
Hello and welcome everybody to Sonic Talk episode number 482. Yes, we're gradually winding our way to 500. 500 of what, you might be asking? Well, Sonic Talk is music technology, production, live production, electronic music, synthesizers, software, DJ, controllerism, anything to do with that kind of stuff, or sort of all the ancillary subjects that surround the music business, of which I think there still is one, just about. That's what we talk about here. So I want to say welcome to you all for joining us. I want to say also thank you for hanging with us. I think we've got sort of the web chat working, but it seems like it might not be working all that well. We'll fix that for next week, but it's at least working to a degree. If not, and you still want to get some chat, head over to our sonicstate.com/live, and you should have a link to the our live stream on YouTube, where there's also a chat room, and you can join in there if you're feeling a bit left out. Or there should be instructions on how to use an IRC client, whatever that is, with the chat room. So thank you very much for joining. Sorry, Mark. Yes,
I just posted a URL in the chat room, which I took from I looked at your page source.
Ah, okay.
So your height is set to 300 pixels, but I just posted the URL. If you click on that URL, you'll get the thing full screen.
There we go. I'm posting that in, I think I'm posting that in YouTube as well. Thanks for that, Mark. Before we get to our guests, I should quickly say hello and thank you to our sponsors, iZotope, who will be giving away a copy of Neutron, their mixing tool, which we talked a little bit about last week. It was sort of rather spontaneous praise for it, which was great, if a little embarrassing, being that they're a sponsor of the show. It was in no way fixed. It's just that it's that good, right? So if you want to win one, stick around, and that will be coming up about halfway through the show. So let's now get to our guests. As you heard from Mr. Mark Tinley, who has, amongst many things, now got the correct lower third to his profession. Sonus Magus, which is a music shop of curiosities, oddities, and DIY and custom-made instruments, electronica, and all of that sort of thing in Glastonbury. How are you, Mark?
I'm all right. And that's brilliant, because now I can stop going on about it.
That's good. Oh, yes, I suppose so. Well, that's fair enough. We did do a deal.
I feel a little bit like everything I talk about seems to revolve around that. So I'll make a conscious effort not to bring it up a million times during the podcast.
That's fair enough. I think that's a fair deal. I think I'll stick with that. But thank you, Mark. Mark, as well as being the proprietor of said music shop, Mark has a history and background in music production, live production, sound design, all of those things around it. Would that be fair to say? Yes.
I think that would be fair to say. I'm very old and I've done lots of things.
And all of them are legal and above board, I might add. Right.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Right, so let's get on to guest number 2, Mr. Gaz Williams, who's there in Bristol, where I think that's in his production room, where he does mastering, record producing, mixing, recording, and is also a keen music technologist, as you'll probably see him on a few of our episodes of Sonic... what's it called? Sonic Lab, that's right. Stuff where we review things. Gosh, I'll get there in the end.
Yeah, and a bassist.
Oh, yes, of course, I forgot that. A bassist. See, I can't see a bass tree behind you. I can only see like a headphone tree. There we go. There's a bass. Gaz Williams was over with us yesterday looking at, as I said earlier, Cubase 9. So we'll have that coming up quite soon.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
Excellent fun. Excellent fun. Well, I'm just turning around to make sure everything's working, because it was a bit of a hurried thing. Sometimes, because what I have to do is this Facebook, like, this is dull. I'll say it once, and I'll probably say it every week, even though I say I don't say it again. Because I do use Facebook Live, I have it happening at a specific time, because if I don't, then you end up with all of this preamble, because I can put the preamble on YouTube, but I would rather keep it sort of tight without all the waffling before and after. So that's why I try and get it bang on 4:03. I think we were today, so I'm hoping those Facebook users can see all of that. So what a week. Have we got some news this week? Because as we know, it's been a little bit quiet because obviously people have really focused on NAMM, although we have in fact got first up Music Messe coming up at the beginning of April. I think it's the 5th to the 8th of April. And then Superbooth in Berlin, which is the 20th to the 22nd of April. We'll be going to both of those, so you'll be able to see all of the stuff that we get from there. So let's start with this guy. This is multitracks.com. This is a chap called Will Doggett.
Certified trainer and director of training development at multitracks.com. I'm here at Worship Connect at Sweetwater in Fort Wayne, Indiana, in the Performance Theater. You guys are going to get a very kind of special behind-the-scenes video tutorial. So this event, we've had Matt Gilder and the rest of the band for Chris Tomlin here. Matt has this great Ableton rig where he's running 2 computers at the same time, what we call a redundant rig, to where if one goes down, the other one keeps going. So what I wanted to do is kind of break down everything you need to do this. Now, if you look at the table, it's a bit of a mess here, so obviously you don't want to stand on stage leading worship with this. Typically, you're going to put that in a rack like what Matt has. Going to be nice and neat and tidy. But I try to break everything out so that you can get kind of each individual piece and understand it. So the very first thing is kind of why would you...
Right, I won't play the whole thing, but this is quite interesting because... I don't know if any of you have been, well, I know you both have been involved in live production. Running an A and a B rig, similar, if you're doing a live show and you've got maybe virtual instruments, you've got backing tracks, you've got DAW stuff happening, it doesn't have to be Ableton Live, it could be Logic or whatever. There used to be these kind of really custom, bespoke, kind of relay switched kind of sensing systems that became really kind of complicated and insanely expensive to be able to run 2 rigs. We're sort of talking, Beyonce, that kind of thing, where you might have 2 things going and then you've just got a redundant system. So if one goes down on one, you flip it in, same as you might. And this is sort of, in many ways, has been the kind of the domain of like superstars, whereas actually a lot of people depend on this for shows, and this was a really interesting and quite creative way of setting up an A and a B system. I'll run through it very quickly just because so if you've got 2 computers, they're running together, what he's using is the iConnectivity, I think it's the MIPO, which is a 4-channel MIDI with 2 USBs in. The controller's going into that, so the USB is going to each computer. So each computer has the same MIDI feed. So when you press start and start using remote commands, they're all happening at the same time. Then I think, what was the next thing that we were using? He was using there. He was using this Radial. This was kind of cool. This is the Radial SW8, which is which is basically an 8-input DI box with 2 sets of 8s and 8 outputs, and you can flip between A and B on a foot switch. So you've basically got, if you've got 8 outputs from each audio system, you can basically choose which audio system is being routed to the 8 DI outputs. That's kind of nifty. Also using a MIDI Solutions R8, which is a kind of MIDI event to foot switch type relay thing. So you can use it for foot switching between the Radial R8. Then he's also got a MIDI Solutions programmable input selector, which just basically takes an input and routes it through to a specific output on a foot switch. So you join all of this stuff up, and then it allows you to basically have 2 complete systems that you could, on a single MIDI command, you can flip between them, and they should reign completely in sync. And it might sound dull, but I thought it was a pretty creative way of doing it. Mark, I know you did a lot of work with Duran, which I don't know how much stuff they were playing back live. Did you have redundancy in your system?
Yes. Had duplicates of everything. So when I did it with Atari Stacys, yes, I'm very old.
Oh, my Lord.
We had 2 Atari Stacys, so if one of them crashed, you could just flip to the other one. I can't remember how I flipped between the audio. I think we were doing ADATs as well at one point, and I think the way I got around the fact if one machine jammed up, I could flip to the other was by running one of them through the inputs of the other one.
So you're going to record,
but then I ran the whole thing off one of those big SMPTE remote things. So the remote was the common factor. The 2 ADATs were following the code. If one of them snarled up, you just flip it in and out of
record ready. Oh, that's an interesting
record ready.
idea.
Yeah, exactly. So that was one solution. Then we had some Fostex hard disk recorders, which were brilliant and never went wrong. So there was never really any reason to have an A and a B rig, I suppose. And then it all ended up on laptops. And you just have 2 laptops running and you start the song at the same time on 2 laptops. And
Hope for the best.
Yeah, and but again, that's I don't know, it's much more reliable than it used to be.
Yeah, that's true.
My theory is if it runs off batteries, if the power goes out, then it's not going to fail. It will keep going, won't it?
As long as your audio interface can run off bus power, then you're fairly cool. That's a good point about batteries.
But we had a big UPS as well, so if anything, so it meant that my power was clean.
Wow.
And if the power went out, mine didn't.
I can imagine,
especially on samplers.
Yeah, no, I can imagine that. I mean, obviously, carting a UPS around the place because they're heavy.
They don't need to be that big. You can run it off a small UPS, and you can still get 5 to 10 minutes off a small UPS. And hopefully, they've corrected the problem by then. And if they haven't,
then game over.
Everybody else has stopped playing anyway, and you've got time to rethink. So.
Oh, wow. I like that idea about record ready and flipping the inputs and chaining them together. That's a neat idea. I mean, this kind of strikes me as, because this whole system, this was, I say, Will Doggett from Live Tracks, I think it was called, Live Redundant Ridge, that multitracks.com was just this kind of lateral thinking and a way to solve the problem. It's still not cheap. I mean, I think the radial was about 1,500 quid. It's still a couple of grand, but if the show must go on, it could well be Gaz, I don't know if you've had similar experiences, because most of the time when we're playing live, it's shoestring stuff, and you're not going to take much redundancy because you've got to travel light as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, if some of the older viewers remember the opera that I did in 2012, Popeye. Yeah, we did a video, didn't we?
Yeah, it was great.
The rig rundown of a rock opera or something like that. It was called. But that goes into the redundancy system that we had going on for that show, this was a big bucks, very expensive show. But that had there was 2 keyboard players, and there was an enormous amount of patch switching across the whole thing. So we had essentially another duplicate of both systems. No, we didn't. Sorry, we had one Mac Pro, but the Mac Pro was capable of running both rigs simultaneously. There was a lot of Motu audio interfaces. But I was just thinking then, is that AVB? If they were all AVB'd into one interface, that wasn't around then, I don't think. But
no,
that would work.
I suppose it would, but then you've still got the single point of failure as the network switch then, isn't it? then that could take it all out. So it's about redundancy and not having single points of failure, I suppose.
Yeah.
I've got a question then.
Yeah.
Because I did thousands and thousands of shows. So in thousands of shows, I probably had it fail less than a handful of times. So in all the shows you've done, how many times has it really gone that wrong that you needed to switch to a B rig?
Yeah, well, there is that too. I mean, I know that one of the big issues, certainly in recent times before SSDs were prevalent, was the if you're running, and I know Robbie Bronneman ran into this a number of times, didn't he, where there's so much bass flying around on stage, what happens is the hard drive vibrates and the heads just automatically park because it feels like it's being dropped, and they have auto sensing to kind of make sure that if you drop it or knock it, it doesn't scratch the surface. So that what would happen if you're playing...
You can turn that off.
Right, oh, okay.
On a MacBook Pro, do you mean?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, you have to. There's a command. You have to type something in the terminal, and you can switch it off. But yes, that is a problem.
So I mean,
but it's a solvable one.
Yeah, or just have no bass in the system. I suppose that's the other thing. Have all the. But anyway, that's quite common. I think for DJs as well, because they now quite often, if laptop DJs. They'll put. I remember seeing people with rigs on massive pieces of spongy foam, so there's very little kind of transference of the actual vibrations going through. But that's. I don't know. I just thought it was an interesting lateral way of thinking. So essentially, just to recap, what he's got is he's got 2 separate laptop rigs, a common iConnectivity MIDI interface which talks to both of them. Everything is remotely run via, a control surface or a keyboard. So stop commands, clip changes, all of that sort of thing are done by a MIDI remote. And then each of the laptops has its own audio interface, and they're going into this switching DI box. So you can switch between the 2 sets of inputs. And then at the same time, there's which is done on a foot switch, and there's also a MIDI input routing, because you want to be able to route the MIDI sort of in or out to just one or other rigs, otherwise you'll end up with doubling. And that was these are MIDI solutions things, which also is on a foot switch. So you've got like a MIDI command to foot switch emulator, which will then flip inputs and what have you. And that seemed like quite a cool system. And then you can flip back, because if it's in sync, I mean, if you were running some kind of master clock and that was going into the master interface and running both things, then you could when you come back online, they should all pick up again, depending on which DAW you're using. So just kind of quite a laterally interesting way of doing things. Anyway, I thought
the master clock part of it is an important part of it, because if you've got a stable master clock and it keeps going, obviously, as you say, your sequencer will be in the right place, even if it's crashed or whatever, or you've had to switch. So I mean, I know that it's a redundant piece of technology, but that the BRC thing was a really brilliant master clock.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I suppose that does bring in other issues, which is, because obviously, it's not just it's like, Gaz, I mean, how many basses do you take? Do you bother? Do you sometimes think, I'll just take one bass and it'll be all right, and don't have one at the side of the stage you could just grab if you snap a string? Because that can be a game killer, can't it, really?
I mean, I take two out with me for the big gigs. And, we were, big gig, headlining Simple Things Festival in Bristol. And my first note, I go to do a big note, bang, string snap, first note.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so having another bass is, it's essential for those shows. Smaller gigs, not such a problem. I don't break strings very often. I was so surprised for the string to snap on that first note, but but this topic does tap into one of my pet hates, and that is playback tracks and the evil that they have done to the music. Evil, I'm telling you. I tell you, it killed it. It's the death, and I really hate it. I hate it. I think if you're doing electronic music, there's other means. But I think, and I think there's, in some situations it's possible, but in most cases it's evil. So yes, name and shame.
Interesting.
That's what I say.
I don't know. I mean, because sometimes, the thing is, okay, let me put it to you this way. If you've got a touring act who've got, some small gigs and the public want to see them, they can't afford to take enough musicians on the roads to be able to make it all. So, that happens though, doesn't it? It does happen.
Yeah, but this is why keep music live, It's just like, it's terrible. Down
I wouldn't
it.
have had a bloody job if Duran didn't have backing tracks. I'd have never worked for them.
Well, and I should add, the public are become more and more sort of demanding as to what they want to hear reproduced in a live scenario as well.
I asked some girls who'd just seen this concert that I knew there was playback tracks, and I told them, and they couldn't give a monkeys, They loved it. They were singing along.
Yeah.
They said, makes no difference. So I was thinking, am I just stuck in some sort of muso thing here? But no, I realised it's spiritually dead and it's cheating. Music is the moment. Bang!
Yeah, well, I suppose, one could argue, because, there could be arguments where is Ableton Live playback or not. Yes, it is, but it can be configured in a way that makes it much more of the moment, right?
That makes all the difference. I think what I'm talking about is safety net back, this is the kind of thing. If the lead vocalist, he struggles on the chorus to hit those high, so he's singing live in the verses. When it gets to the chorus, automate out his lead vocal, playback goes in with the lead vocal, back into the verse, live. Everyone thinks, he's singing live.
Okay.
It's the deception is what
I'm with you on that.
That is what I'm in. That's what I'm raging against, you see. It's
if I go to see a band, I want to hear the vocalist sing. I don't want it to be on backing.
Sure. But also the thing that most of them do is just augment the backing vocals. Now, getting backing vocals live,
it's hard.
For real,
it's
really hard. So they just have everyone's kind of miming. The backing vocals come off the playback tracks. I tell you, that's what I'm going after. That's the stuff. Name and shame that stuff.
Hang on.
Definitely.
When we collectively did that show in Bristol, I had all my backing tracks and I had all my backing vocals on there. Was I rubbish?
So, Gaz, does that mean Mark should have actually hired a band?
Yeah, I should have done. You know what? If I'd asked in the chat room and said, "Excuse me, can somebody come and play in my band with me?" They probably would have. I probably would have had a couple of offers, wouldn't I?
We wouldn't have been able to do it though.
I think there's exceptions.
Why? Because the stage was too small.
Yes.
I'm talking about deception. You know, when Milli Vanilli got busted, and it was a big deal, and everyone was like, "Whoa." Yeah. I'm talking about an industry-wide deception that goes on all the time, and no one says anything about it. It just keeps on going on. Yeah. That's what I'm going on about. You doing your performance and other people doing things and use it. That's okay. And so long as there's creative and performance elements into it, it's a deception. That's what's wrong. Yeah. What's wrong.
If I go and stand in the front of house rack of any gig and I look in the rack, I bet you I'll find either Autotune or TC Helicon. So isn't that deception? If the lead singer's being...
No, because I think you could just treat that like, a distortion pedal makes those notes of the guitar, kind of gives them extra sustain, So, no, I don't think
it's not like being tuned, though, is it? I mean, I can't sing in tune, perfectly in tune. I can sing close, but I'm not, not pitch perfect. But if I've got a TC Helicon in a rack and I sing, I sound bloody awesome. So does that mean I'm now a good singer because I'm being digitally enhanced in some way? That's definitely deception. Because if people heard my raw voice, they'd go a bit at it.
Can I have a point in here?
On.
I think there's two things. First thing, Milli Vanilli were actually busted because they didn't sing on the record
at all. No,
at all. So that's a difference. They were just the front, and that's not unusual. We've seen that there's a lot of those old classic 50s musicals where there was a ghost singer, whatever. But anyway, let's gloss over the other thing that happens is you've got the talent shows like X Factor and The Voice and this new thing that Gary Barlow's doing is when there are parts where the singers have to audition and they sing, and then they have this kind of opening number where all the bands come together and do, and you can tell, I'm hearing that and I'm going, they are not singing that live. That is not happening live. That sort of deception, I think, because that makes you think, well, gosh, they're good. And they're not, or they might not be that good. They might be good, but they might not be good enough for the people to risk having them blow it on live TV. So, anyway,
you can feel it when somebody's actually doing it, can't you?
I agree.
If they're not good enough, they should blow it. Come on, bust them. I tell you what, there's only so few slots of music that's available. There's only so few slots. People can only take in so much. There's only so many slots on the playlists, Just boot out the crap. There's so many great musicians, so many great bands out there. Just all the ones who have to cheat. That's it.
Okay.
That's all
I think I've just blown my own argument, actually, because I've just said you can feel it when somebody's actually doing it for real, and that's what you're on about, isn't it? It's like music is about something that comes from inside of us. It's an emotion that we communicate to other human beings. And if we're using backing tracks or any of this tuning stuff, we're not doing that, and then that isn't what music should be about. Maybe
it depends.
It just becomes a kind of a pastiche of entertainment.
Okay, well, here's I was going to move on, but I feel I have to come back in with another point. Right, so
sorry,
you make a record, right? You might adjust the timing, the tuning, Gaz.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Because that's not real. That's not real either.
Yeah. No, because the playback of listening to music in a sort of abstracted situation, it's not there and then, is it? It's a completely different thing. I think going to watch a concert is all about the moment. If you're making a production, that's for, it's under a completely different set of, you're not pretending that you're there in the living room, are you? You want to maybe make
here's
that.
The distinction then.
Maybe.
The distinction is, are you going to watch a show or a performance? They're different things.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Anyway.
That is a good point.
We should probably move on, but just what somebody did make some Bantam80 in the YouTube chat room made a point is like basically a lot of because of the way that people are so famous, they want to just have gone to see Justin Bieber or Little Mix or whatever. Who I'm not saying they don't perform some of their stuff or all of their stuff live, but in that case, it's more about the event of being associated, being able to see their kind of idol in the flesh in some respects. So and there's a different motivation as well, and I think that's always been the case for kind of high pop and certainly teen pop. It's not always about hearing them perform in the way that shows whether they're good at A, B, or C. It's about being there and seeing them and having them project themselves upon the audience in some respect. So it's a different dynamic. Anyway, I'm going to stop there. We're going to have to go in with our... we're now just going to have a word from our sponsors, so if you don't mind. I'm assuming we're going to have a word from our sponsors because this is live broadcast, so it may or may not work. Here we are. Isotope, that's right. Isotope Neutron, the mix assistant, which enables you to basically analyze your mix visually and in audio spectrum. The mix assistant allows you to sort of visualize and see frequencies that are causing problems that you might not be able to tell exactly what they are by ear. You can visualize them, and it helps you essentially sort of clear out the conflicts, the frequency conflicts in the mix. It also allows you to kind of get a mix started by saying, this is a bass track, try this is a drum track, try this, and it gets you on the kind of the route to mix much more quickly. We did talk about this last week, and it was a very interesting process. Obviously, you can add your own flavour and live performance aspects to the mix as well, but this is a really fascinating piece of DSP technology. You can download a free copy to check it out at isotope.com/neutron. Automatic instrument detection, suggestions of processing, and using their latest DSP technology really does open up the possibilities and give you another way of evaluating a mix. We do recommend that you check it out, and we thank you very much, Neutron, Isotope, very much for joining us in a sponsorship way. And we've got a competition. Last week, we asked you to tweet the hashtag. What was the hashtag? I'm trying to remember. I probably should not show that screen. That's right. The hashtag, the Mix Factor and Neutron to @Sonicstate and Isotope Inc. And we have a winner from last week, a chap called Matthew Zappile. It's Zappile, Zappile. He said, "Okay, Sonicstate has sold me. I really want to try Neutron now." Well, you can. If you haven't already, you can now own it. So you are now the winner. So I should say we also got a competition this week, and we're looking for a couple of hashtags on Twitter. First one is Best Mix Ever. And the second one is Neutron. Best Mix Ever is one word, and Neutron, Neutron, to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. So if you tweet those two things and any other phrases or pictures or anything, then our special algorithm will pick up all the entries, and we'll be able to pick a random winner from all of that lot. So once again, we thank Isotope for their sponsorship of the show. Right, next. Oh, yes, here we go. This is Tatsuya leaving Korg. Tatsuya Takahashi, who is the guy behind a lot of... Well, kind of, I like to think, the sort of analog revival was kind of led by the Korg Monotron, the Monotribe, and all the sort of other little nifty effects, and then on to the Minilog and the Monolog. These are kind of pretty, fairly, I think they said, 21 instruments in 7 years that Tats worked on. I interviewed him at NAMM. I've got an interview coming up, which just sort of a little bit of background. But he's off to not Warmer Climes, he's off to Cologne to work on more social change type audio. We don't know who it is or what it is, but it's kind of the end of an era. He's pretty. He's like the poster boy for this kind of analog revival. Certainly mainstream production of it, right?
Well, yeah. So what we're doing, we're looking at Monotron Duo, Monotron Space, Monotribe, Volca Bass, Volca Keys, Volca Beats, Volca Sample, Volca FM, Volca Kick, Monolog,
Minilog, and
Minilog, SQ1.
Did you have an in on the Chaos pads as well? I'm not sure. Maybe some sort of KP. Maybe at early stage. I don't know.
MS20,
yeah, of course.
Desktop. It really has helped bring the analog revival. It's if anything has been the tipping point or the thing that has driven that. It's his contributions, and it really is enormous. And when I heard this news, I was really disappointed, if I'm honest. Because he has made so many exciting things happen. And
you must have bought. You've got a bunch of Volcas for a start, right?
I have got quite a lot of his things. So, he's also, his very kind of cool manner is very inspiring as well. And, and I'm fascinated by him, actually. I'm fascinated that he's had that sort of like London kind of experience that he's managed to sort of combine with his Japanese, well, him being Japanese. But, I think it's a very unique set of circumstances. One of the things that's mind-blowing is like the Korg of all companies having, adopting sort of like a more open source approach to things, labeling the circuit boards with patch points and all sorts of things like this, just really very different from that very corporate Japanese that we're more used to. So
very influential figure indeed.
Yeah.
When I was interviewing him, there's one story he told me. He said, when he graduated from his engineering degree, engineering and design, I think it was, he basically just flew to Japan and knocked on Korg's door and said, I want to work for you, and basically said, I've built this, and kind of, just barged his way, not barged, but presented himself and got the job, which is a really, it's kind of like one of those sort of fairy tale stories, isn't it? It's that sort of thing, rather than being plucked out of obscurity. He just went for it, and his single-mindedness is obviously shown in the product design as well.
Yeah, so speculating what is he going to do next?
I don't know.
What is he?
Well, there's a couple of spin-off topics about that. Actually, I don't know, Mark, have you got any of the Korg stuff? Have you've experienced? I mean, I'm guessing some of these fit right into the pocket of what you sell in your shop as well. These little portable kind of battery.
Well, I've had some of it come and go, so I know what it is. I like the drum machine. There you go. Out of 21 products, I've gone like, oh, I like that one. I really like the Volca drum machine because we're so 808, 909 fixated. It's kind of in that same kind of area, but it's cleverer. The same with the synths. Just like, it's if you were to take the core ingredients of things and go, I just need it to do the things that it does well and only those things. He's somehow done that with each of those units and then made it that you can have lots of them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That collecting, and I think what you were saying there, Gaz, about the fact that he blazed the trail. By Korg going, hey, look, we can do it. It kind of made a lot of people maybe sit and go, oh, maybe it is possible. Because before then it was like, no, you can't make real analog stuff affordable. It's impossible. But you can, and they have, and that sort of opened those floodgates. And I think that's kind of important.
Yeah, and also his influence, you think about Yamaha and the sort of the Reface range, the Roland Boutique range, would they have been made if it wasn't for what he'd done and the Volcas? I doubt it somehow.
Possibly not.
Yeah.
Possibly, yeah. So,
because people have oh, sorry, I'm talking all over you, aren't I? Bad.
Fine.
Sorry about that.
Fine. No, go ahead.
People have been asking Roland to reissue the TB303 since they went over £2,000 years ago, haven't they?
Yeah.
And Roland have just gone, no, we're not going to do that. We want to move on and release the same circuitry that we're currently working on in another 50 synths, all exactly the same.
There is this element as well, and certainly Volca users know very much this, that there's almost, I don't want to say punk rock, but there's something like that about it. Those things, they've, take the Volca bass, for instance, there's wild little twists, they're not just recreations of things. Each one of those brings brand new little twists, and I really like how the Volca series has developed, how they've just added extra little twists, active step, jump steps, and what's the warp active step on the Volca FM, and so these kind of little interesting, quirky.
I totally agree. Okay, here's a question for you then. Right. What next? What would you like to see next? I mean, okay, I'll start with you guys. What new Volca would you like to see next? What's your? I mean, let's maybe forget about the mixer. I don't know. Maybe. Okay. What do you think?
The Volca mixer. It still is that I can't believe how long we've been waiting for that product. From someone. It's still. I mean, there are. I might be wrong about this. Please, anyone, show me things if there have been any Volca mixer made by other people. That kind of, what we're talking about there is small format mini jack mixer. It's terrible. It's one of my bugbears. The mini jack. Yeah. The mini jack is sort of prevalent on these kind of devices. Yet it's so clumsy having to sort of put them into adapters and splits into, and the fact that you can have on a small format many, many, many inputs, you could plug loads, because one of the joys of these things is collecting up lots of them and then being able to have them all on and stuff is just a lot of fun. So, Volca-wise though, okay, sorry, Nick, I totally
cool.
broke your rule there.
Well, I think maybe Volca effects would be good. That would be kind of interesting.
Some sort of Volca effect, definitely. I think, as more...
Bucket brigade delays.
Yeah, Bucket Brigade delays.
Lush, yeah. But I think really what they should do is something
with a cassette in it. Ooh, something with a cassette in it. Now that would be cool.
It's about the size of a cassette, though.
I think.
Well, micro cassette. Oh, even better.
Go, Gaz.
They should do more digital manipulation units. Something that maybe is just about wildly sort of messing with waveforms, because that's such a kind of computery thing. So to actually take it on, sort of into like a little box, but it's actually, like a sampler, more granular, being able to really play around with.
No, that's fair enough. So maybe you're right. Maybe it's the Volcamelotron then, Mark.
Well, yeah, the Volcatron, that's what it needs to be called, the Volcatron, with like little tapes in it. And actually, they'd be about the same size as saxophone reeds, and you screw them in with a little toolkit, put them in there, and loads of little tiny tape heads.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
I've got another one as well, though. Okay. I was talking to somebody earlier on who's quite a young chap, and he'd come to play some music to me to ask me what the effects were on the music, and I was trying to identify them, and one of them I said, well, that sounds like the whole thing's been time stretched, and he said, well, how would I do that? Can I plug, and I think he's got a Farfisa organ, so he said, can I plug my Farfisa organ into something to make it make that effect? And that really got me, because I was thinking, is there an effect where you can actually play something into a box, like a pedal or a rack, and then it comes out longer? I'm thinking like longer, granular synthesis or something, but longer, in real time.
Shorter, no. Unless it's not.
No, shorter, no. But I mean, if I, so I play a guitar, I'm playing chords on the guitar.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Is there something like a buffer thing, a buffer underrun thing that will just stretch it?
Reverb type things that would allow you to kind of freeze.
Like shimmer.
Yeah, and freeze. I suppose that's sort of similar thing. No, good point. Anyway,
but a box that did that would be cool.
Yes,
a little time machine.
I like the sound of that. So, good luck to you, Tatsuya, wherever you are and what you're doing, and we'll be very keen to find out. And of course, you got to bear in mind that generally people are planning products 18 months, 2 years in the future. So he's sticking around as a consultation and sort of helping out. So I'm guessing he's probably already got products in in production that will be coming out later after he's gone. So I don't think it's over by any stretch.
I think I just realised what the next Volca should be. It should be a little Volca chemistry set for manufacturing your own sort of party drugs, just to give out to the audience.
Allegedly, yeah, or not, probably. I don't think that would be such a good idea on live streams. Anyway, right. So what's next? Let's see. Taz leaving Korg. Maybe. Well, let's have a look at this one.
Music can now be produced.
This is the new Electron Harmonics Synth 9 pedal.
Electronic music.
Well, this isn't. This is some bloke in front of what looks like a 55. Because, of course, you'll want to, with your synth pedal, just basically play cheesy 80s poly riffs. Why wouldn't you? This is Bill Rupert. Oh, yeah, baby. Probably. So he goes through all 9 of these presets. I did hear, actually, there is a bit in it. I think it might be this one. It might... A bit of Your Eyes by Peter Gabriel. Here we go. Which was a surprise. Oh, I can't rewind it properly. Anyway, there's basically a whole bunch of these kind of things, and this is based on
synth preset. Is a combination.
I'll stop that. This is based on their polyphonic pitch algorithm. So what have we got? We've got the I think I've got a web page up here with all of the pedals that are in that series. They've got what have they got? The B9, the C9, which are both sort of organ machines. Where's the other one? There was a Mel 9. Did you get a Key 9? What's that? A Key 9? What's it?
Key 9 is like the Rhodes one,
and the Mel 9 is a Mellotron type thing.
Mellotron, yeah.
This is interesting because they started out with the microsynth, many, which people still rate and still use.
Oh, that's brilliant.
And have you got any of these things?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got the Mel 9. I've played with the others, not this one, this new one. But it's interesting because essentially it's the same product, just with
different sounds.
And I strongly suspect my feeling how it works is that they've got this terrific polyphonic pitch algorithm that first appeared in the POG. I think that was the first time we've seen it, and then they've used it and developed it into lots of different products over the years, like the Hog, then, which was like the POG, but then we've seen it in multitude of things now, including all of these pedals, which they've all got the same form factor. They've all got 9 sounds, and I strongly suspect that that it's based on convolutions, that it's got some sort of impulses of those actual sounds, because like the Mellotron one is profound in that you play it, there's no real lag, it's very, very, very responsive, and it sounds uncannily realistic. It doesn't behave anything like a Mellotron. You'd have to sort of simulate that in the way that you play. And just a quick mention about Bill Rupert, who does that and does many of the Electro-Harmonics demos. As a guitarist, he is incredible. He's one of the best I've seen at being able to mimic actual keyboard playing on a guitar. He really is very good at that. So he's an ideal demonstrator for this stuff. But it's interesting because when you just play regular stuff, say on the Mel 9, for instance, it's a peculiar mishmash of sound going on. So you do have to kind of approach it in a certain way. It's very responsive, but that curious mishmash is also something that I'm quite interested in using them in ways, perhaps, I don't know, in unusual ways. Doing lots of pitch bending is really interesting with them. Very, very cool. And I don't know about this. This is just my hunch, but I think that the great and wonderful David Cockerell is somewhere behind the scenes on these
he's
pedals.
the guy from EMS, Akai. I mean, and we were talking about this yesterday, weren't we, Gaz? I mean, I don't know, Mark. Can you think of anything else that has got a polyphonic pitch and analysis algorithm? I can't. I mean, we thought the TC, maybe the
there's
TC
an
stuff.
App there's an Apple OS X app that's got a polyphonic algorithm in it. One of the Boss pedals has got it. Is it the GR? The newest GR, blue coloured thing,
right? Yeah.
So there's a couple of them.
The SY, the SY 300.
Is it SY 303 or 300 or something?
Yeah, I think something like that.
So there are a couple of things, but all of the ones I've tried don't work very well. This one I haven't tried. I love the number 9, but I don't like any of the sounds in it.
It was
this
very
kind
cheesy,
of demo.
wasn't it?
It's
Yeah.
so cheesy for me. That's probably borderline rude, but I I want it to be gnarly and dirty and resonant and filters to be sweeping about all over the place. And to me, like, synth means, like their micro synth of yesteryear, you can grab hold of it and change all the sounds and you can program it to do what you want it to do. So 9 presets to me just would be, I don't know.
I think you
they're
get
not
a couple,
the 9 I'd choose for a start.
You get a couple of parameter adjustments for each algorithm, I think. So you do get that, but,
right.
It's
and those are just and they're different on depending which algorithm that you're using. But it's its philosophy is like a stomp box. It isn't. It's all about a complete lack of complexity. It really works as if like a chorus pedal or something. And in fact, that was one way I was thinking about the Mel 9. If you just considered it, because you've got like a wet-dry blend. If you take the wet-dry blend down really towards the dry end, you can get it to sound like sort of chorus-type effects, So there is a tendency with these things to sort of, show off with them and make them very novelty. But once you start bedding them back or integrating them with your other effects, that's when some of the deeper sort of powers of it happen. And that's certainly my experience.
I guess if you put a volume pedal between it and your amp rather than your guitar and it, then you could end up with some nice sort of more envelope-based stuff, which would be outside of your normal kind of transient and an attack from a guitar. So you can get those sort of sounds out of it.
But ultimately, they win for me because they're playable. They're very, very playable.
Okay, so the questions have been coming up in the chat. What is the delay like? I mean, obviously, at the very low notes, it's going to be slower because of the cycle, but what's it?
it's very playable. I mean, I on my pedal board, I've got the pitchfork, so that's just a pitch shifter, but polyphonic pitch shifter. So I assume it's and then I had the Mel 9 next to it, and the response of them felt very similar. Okay, there is a degree of latency, but it's a playable degree of latency. I think that's the
it's
key.
Interesting. I was just trying to think. TC Electronics stuff, the Helicon stuff, where you can play your guitar in and it'll harmonise to the guitar against the vocal. That's polyphonic, and they've got their tuner.
Yeah,
that's also polyphonic, but it's not.
The TC stuff only identifies the interval of a major and a minor.
Okay.
So no more than that. So I mean, yes, it does do it, but that's
interesting. But so I think you're right. I mean, they've basically got this algorithm, which doesn't seem like anybody's got operating as successfully, and they're just kind of using it in unit.
I've got the Eventide H9, which has got and I got the Max one, so it's got all the pitch algorithms, and it's got many of the great Eventide algorithms, but they don't appear to have a polyphonic pitch shifter. Yeah. Well, they certainly don't within the H9. So
interesting. And there's a lot of grunt in those things, so you'd be surprised. I don't know, Mark, have you got any octaviders and what have you? I mean, I suppose there's that, but polyphony helps.
They're all analog, though. That's a frequency divider, isn't it? An octavider, generally. Or the whammy thing's a proper pitch shifter, but...
yeah.
I don't know. I want to know, if you put different sounds in the front end of it, is it responsive to that, or does it just track the pitch and only the pitch? In other words, does the tonality of the guitar make a difference to what comes out the other end of it?
Okay.
We've been using it with a viola with a bug mic on it, and using it to sort of kind of thicken out the sound of that. Which, you see, that's the way to do it, not playbacks. Anyway, sorry. But when you add it to the viola, see, I'm having to mimic a viola here for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about. It's this like resonant wooden
big
box.
violin.
It sounds amazing, actually. It sounds amazing. Again, it's about getting the blend right. But just the way what I noticed that it did for the viola, when you play a violin or viola with electric instruments, it's almost like it's got like a peak. It's like a very sort of peaky sound, and that peaky sound isn't fat enough for rock. Rock instruments are kind of quite fat sounding, and what the Mel 9 does to the viola is it just kind of gives it a wider sonic footprint in a way that just makes it sort of work with rock instruments. It's less peaky and more sort of
interesting.
Really cool.
Okay, let's move on. Obviously, there was some sad news this week, which not towards the beginning of the week. Let's just but check this out. It's amazing. Mr. Clyde Stubblefield at what looks like a drum clinic, doing a bit of his funky stuff. Sadly passed away 18th of February. And it's sad in many ways. I mean, I don't know how active he was during later life, but yeah, round of applause there for Mr. Absolutely. Sad news that he's passed away. I don't know how active he was in later life, but it got me thinking. I mean, there's so many things to this. I mean, first of all, how many tracks has the Funky Drummer or any of his grooves been sampled on? I mean, you could argue it's the birth of hip hop. He used to play with James Brown, obviously, from 1965 on a lot of classic recordings, and his groove is sort of enabled a ton of hip-hop stuff, essentially. I mean, it wasn't just him, obviously, but he's one of the most iconic break kind of guys. There's the Amen break and there's the Funky Drummer. Funky Drummer did get killed to death, but he's got a load of other breaks that were just as valid and just as heavily used. And it's a sad day, but it's also brilliant that he was around and did what he did. But what a groovy drummer, eh? I mean, Mark, we grew up, our musical journey was kind of through the heyday of people using a lot of his beats in early kind of sampled up and hip hop and cut up stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, the thing I liked about it was that his drum kit sounded like a drum kit. So actually, if you look at my musical career, if my musical career started when I was like, say, 14 or 15 when I started playing the guitar, Phil Collins had come along with his like canonic kind of tom-toms, and everything at the end of that era was kind of this big kind of reverb on things. And then when that came back around, I suppose, because I guess the whole James Brown thing predates that anyway, when it became popularized and sampled, to me it was like refreshing, because it sounded like, oh, hang on a minute, that actually sounds like a drum kit now, and not like this kind of synthetic, overly gate reverbed kind of thing. So I mean, it led me to miking kits up with like one mic and trying to get that sound.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I never met anybody that could play as well as him.
Yes, there is that. Because when he plays it, you just think, oh, that looks really easy. That's how it's done. And then you just go, wait a minute. That interplay between the hi-hat and the grace notes on the snare, I mean, just astonishing, really. I mean, it really it was such an iconic thing. And, I mean, this also got me thinking a little bit more about, there used to be a period, and I don't want to get all retro and think, oh, not like the old days, but I was trying to think, okay, drummers that I would know the name of now. The last person I can think of that you would think, oh yeah, that guy's a drummer and he's a drummer, was Dave Grohl. That's the last person I can think of that you think, yeah, he's a famous drummer. That's a new famous drummer, not like a kind of Clyde Stubblefield age famous drummer. And I was thinking, I honestly can't think of anybody. I mean, there must be. Maybe I'm out of the loop, which is entirely possible and very likely. But it seems like there aren't those kind of big musical personalities around so much, and that's just. I thought that was an interesting topic of debate. Click track.
Yeah, click track killed the great musician. Really, the click track.
Oh God, here we go.
The dominance of the click track. No, I'm telling you. You can look at it. Look at the equivalent of the fossil record, the vinyl record. Yeah, you look at what happens. You look at when once production techniques came, once the click track became the dominant force. That's when we kind of lost track of great musicianship. It truly is.
Yeah, possibly. I'm just trying to think. But I'm not.
Because okay, let me justify it. Let me justify it a little bit. What happens when you play with a great drummer, like a really great drummer? The sense of dynamics isn't just volume up and down. It's a front to back dynamic as well, being able just to subtly bring things forward, bringing things backwards, and it's a beautiful thing. And you can just and a really great musician can control that. Like sort of they can. It's a beautiful thing. It's not a bad thing. Once everything got so rigid, I mean, look, we've got like 30 years of rigid music. Rigid.
Drumulator.
Drummers really, really struggled in that environment. I remember an example particularly. I was sitting in a control room, and the drummer was in the room, not hearing what the producer was saying, and the producer and the engineer, and a couple of people who were producing the session, involved in the session. And this drummer I loved playing with, because it's a beautiful, soulful drummer to play with. And anyway, he was trying to play. They were trying to force him to the click, and they were just slagging him off. They were slagging off his musicianship. They were slagging him off. They were saying he was rubbish, and I heard them slagging him off to other people as well. And I just thought, so there we go. That's that example there, I think, manifests across 30 years of click dominance has seen. That's why I think
it gives drummers an inferiority complex. That whole play to the click.
Yeah, maybe so.
I mean, I've sat with people and then recorded them. They've done like a great performance, and then we've gridded it. So you go through a 16th note at a time in Pro Tools on the multi-track across and just juggle things back and forth. In fact, Rich Hilton taught me how to do that, thinking about it. But I don't know. And then you chop it up into chunks, and then you go, actually, that verse is better than that verse. Right. Okay, let's use that verse then. Oh, right, that chorus. Oh, no, those first two bars of that chorus are the best one. And in the end, there's like about 3 or 4 bars of their playing, and it's been homogenized and dehumanized. And all of the push-pull stuff's gone out of it. And it's kind of like we've turned them into a loop, I suppose, as a programmer, Pro Tools guy. I'm guilty of this.
Yeah, well, I would like to say, I always felt really uncomfortable with cutting up drum multi-tracks because I just thought, well, I can't. I mean, I program drums a bit. I mean, I'm not a drummer. I'm not a musician. It's like, what's good? Am I the best person to decide this? It sort of I felt the responsibility was a bit too beyond my musical capability in many ways, and so I think, but as a counter to that, the thing is that's changed massively. I mean, now you can take the grooviest musician in the multi-track and impose their feel onto it. This is if you're not playing all together in the same room and you're doing overdubs. I mean, Gaz, you were talking about that as well, where you can just kind of go, that's a really groovy performance, make the grid work to him. So, just get the tempo map and it let it work and then snap to that. So you're still snapping, but you're not snapping to a rigid grid.
Yeah. I think that's the key. That's the key. And, I don't want to be a hypocrite about things. But I think preserving musical performance, if it's it's only worth doing if it's a good performance, you know what I mean? But yes, if you use some of the tools like Melodyne 4, I often go on about the timing detector within Melodyne 4, the ability to create astonishing click tracks from non-click performances is amazing. And what I do is I use Melodyne 4 as a means to create a tempo map then of the recording, and then I'll export that out. I tend to use it in Cubase then. Cubase has a pretty good tempo detection. Very good tempo detection algorithm, but the Cubase one works on a single track, so you can kind of feed it hi-hats or overheads or something like that. Or anything, guitar. But with the Melodyne way, it aggregates from as many tracks as you put into it. So
so you can get much more. Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and it's cool because if you've got like a whole band's worth of multi-track and you've put them in, I tend to sort of pick like maybe 3 or 4 drum tracks, a rhythm track, and a bass track, whatever, and then you do this tempo assign. I think the thing is, though, it is hard work. It is hard work to do this. And, a lot. And I think this is the bottom line. A lot of producers, just because it's hard work, will just seek out, as Mark mentioned, just a small part of it, copy and paste it, or whatever.
That again comes down to the fact that, when all of this stuff was in its infancy, the Pro Tools operator and the recording process would have been in the studio, the $1,000, plus a day studio, and you're doing that in that environment. Now, you don't necessarily, you wouldn't work in that way. You'd probably go and record some drum tracks or some wild tracks, come back, sit in your basement studio or whatever, sort it all out, maybe go back again and do some overdubs or whatever. So you can compartmentalize it a lot more. So that's why it's probably coming back in. It's not about the money on the day. It's about the workflow which works to be able to get the best out of it. And people are, as we saw with the Ableton Live, here's how you do the redundancy. People are thinking of really interesting and cool ways to use the technology to work with humans rather than to have humans work with it, right?
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Yeah. You've also, there is something going on though with younger people now largely through like the band Wolfpack, and we've talked about them before on the show, and they did that all the drum pattern things. I can't remember what it was. I'm sure someone in the chat room can help out there. The Wolfpack drum. Oh gosh, I'll come back to me in a moment. But they, as a young band, have been really keen to sort of help educate. And recently, they've been doing performances and having Bernard Purdy guest with them.
Wow.
Yes, there's some great footage of them. This young band doing sort of kind of cool stuff but featuring these old musicians, and I love that. This acknowledgement, like what got us with this conversation with the poor Clyde Stubblefield, but just keeping those personalities kind of alive.
I think that's a really valid point. And as I said, I did sort of out the challenge. Okay, who are these? People are throwing lots of ideas, lots of names of other drummers or musicians, and they're all from sort of most of them are from before that time. So I think that's an interesting concept. Isn't it? I mean, we've got Corey Henry, we've got some in the keyboard range, some of those kind of people, and there are current guitarists who are virtuoso. But it's very, and the same used to be with bass players as well. You get a bit of that, but I mean, I'm thinking, apart from you guys, obviously there aren't so many modern recognised not virtuoso, but well respected and public name kind of people who are known to a lot of people as great players who have come through. And I don't think it's because they're no good. It's because it's harder to find out who they are, perhaps, right?
Who is the... who? Were you talking to Gaz and I've just done it again?
No, carry on. No, carry on.
I was going to say, who is the modern-day equivalent of somebody like Steve Gadd? Like, who have we got in 2017 who is the equivalent to Steve Gadd? Because he's a sort of a household name, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, actually, who's the guy who played with Jed? Jed, who played with Peter Gabriel. Jed. I can't remember.
Jed Lynch.
Jed Lynch.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a really, really good drummer, and he's quite a field drummer. And he's not really into click tracks. I know that, but when you hear him play, he's really, really good, and he plays with and I guess Omar Hakim, but he's a more modern. That's a slightly newer name, but it's still a quite.
Jed is amazing and a great friend of mine. But he is. We did this one time. Sorry, it's a little anecdote. This one time we were doing this gig. It was an outdoor gig, and it was in a town square, so people could. When we were doing the sound check, people were amassing, just kind of interested, and knowing that it was Peter Gabriel's drummer, he's quite a lot of people thought, and he's sound checking the drums. He's doing the toms, he's going through the whole drum, sound checking it, and then the guy asks him to play the whole kit, and there's a load of people all gathered, so he goes to play the whole kit, and plays really rubbishly, but sort of not rubbish enough to be like obviously rubbish. But rubbish enough just for everyone, just to disappoint everyone who was waiting.
he's quite.
Was this deliberate?
Quite the. Gen.
Oh yeah, deliberately, sort of, just knowing all these people kind of expected him to do something.
Well, I did some sessions with him because on an album I was working on, this was again, it was like there were some classic records that the people I was working for wanted to kind of recreate some of those drum sounds and drum vibes of that particular time. So Jed came in and he brought a load of different bass drums and a load of different mics and different snares and stuff. And we went through it was just tons, ZZ Top, loads of grooves, and we went through them all. And he recorded 15 minutes of each one, a bunch of fills and what have you. And then I took all the multi-tracks away. And honestly, I was getting so close. I mean, it's not my skill. I was getting so close to the original sound of and feel of the drums that he just kind of like emulated those loops. It was amazing. I was like, wow, how on earth did you do that? And that sort of shows the skill, I suppose, involved with somebody who has that kind of craft. But it's not a kind of like check my drum solo out kind of skill, I suppose. So maybe that's the difference. The flamboyancy is not so much there.
There's a guy in London, I can't remember his name, who's got a recording studio in up north Kentish Townish kind of area called Funny Bunny, I think. And I think his name's Jeremy something or another, but he's got like loads of vintage equipment in there, old EMI desks and old Telefunken kind of compressors. And if you play him a track, he'll identify what it was that they used on it and set you up with the right kind of kit and the right kind of sounds. And that's similar kind of thing, actually. He's very good.
That's an interesting
if he's still around. I don't know if he's still around, but
interesting concept. Right, well, I suspect we've kind of waffled on about the subject for a little while, but yeah, suffice to say, condolences to anybody who's worked with or his family. He died at 73, which I was really surprised. I thought he'd be much, much older than that for some reason, because I was just, thinking James Brown back in the day, but it's not as far back as you think, really. That's how quickly these things move. He was, but sadly missed, and a great kind of ambassador and kind of iconic figure in the industry. So, this one's for you, Clyde, the spirit of Clyde. Okay. That's probably it for today. I think essentially now all it remains me to say is don't forget, if you want to enter the competition from Isotope to win Isotope's Neutron, the Mix Assistant and Mix plugin, tweet the hashtag best mix ever and the hashtag Neutron to @Sonicstate and @Isotope Inc. and that will get you entered for the competition. We can send that out next week when we do another show, because there will be another one next week. So it just remains me to say thank you very much, Mark Tinley, for joining us of Sonus Magus or Magus. Is it Magus or Magus?
Either. I don't mind.
Okay.
I don't know how to pronounce it. I'll tell you what, if somebody knows how to pronounce it, would they please send me like a voice clip of how it should be pronounced in proper Latin, you know. Then when I'm wizarding with my noises and telling people reikuleles, that's my latest line. I've got a ukulele in my shop which I claim to have done Reiki on. That might be a lie. It's called Jenny, and it's been like treated with special kind of Reiki powers to make the person that buys it into a much better player. But I live in Glastonbury, so all of these things are partially tongue in cheek, of course. But
right. Okay,
yeah,
that's an interesting
check it
idea.
out.
And there, doesn't that come down? What's the? Isn't there the old blues thing where the guy goes to the crossroads and plays and sells his soul so he can play guitar better? What's that? Isn't that sort of spirituality is connected in some way?
If you come into Abbey Mews, where my shop is, it's an old 60s arcade, and there's beige tiles on the floor. And as you come into the Mews, there's a white tile arrow, about one set of tiles white, that runs the whole length of the Mews, and it stops outside my door, and there's an arrow coming into my shop pretty much, and an arrow going into the art gallery opposite. So I've decided I am actually on the crossroads.
You're on that ley line. Yeah.
And I know a man who throws all sorts of strange alcohol incenses around, who came and he plays slide guitar, actually. So he claims to be a New Orleans-y sort of a practitioner of such things. He's been by,
and
to, you know,
his spirit
to look for souls.
Excellent.
I don't think I have a soul.
That's
though,
my favourite line from Derek
hard
and
for me
Clive.
to sell it.
Derek and Clive. My favourite line is that yes, we British have the Americans have their soul singers and we have our soul singers. Yeah, that's one of my favourite. Anyway, Gaz, also thank you very much to you for joining us. A pleasure as ever. And don't forget, we will be able to see Gaz, the fruits of Gaz's Steinberg Cubase 9 labours fairly soon. Thanks for coming.
Thanks very much. Yeah, brilliant. Hey.
Excellent. Robert Johnson was the name of the guitarist, by the way. The chat room has informed me. So thank you very much. Okay, that's it for this week.
Robert Johnson?
Yeah, apparently
the blues
so.
player from the 20s. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Apparently so. Anyway, that's it for this week. We'll say thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye now.